Thank you everyone for joining in. We'll just give a minute for folks to join in today. Okay, I think we are on top of the hour. We have a good number of attendees. So welcome everyone to our first session of the VCF 9.1 series, End-to-End Cyber Resilience, Recovery and Compliance Management. Next slide, please. Before I go ahead and introduce our today's two super speaker, I just want to remind folks on our flagship event that is happening in Las Vegas, August 31st to September 3rd. You can see the link. I will also give you the links. But if you cannot attend at Las Vegas, not to worry. We have a local version coming in. Mumbai 29 to 30th September, Singapore 1st to 2nd October. And the best part is you will have all your hands dirty with the hands-on labs. You will have access to certification exams. You will have access to your certification vouchers as well, a chance to win. And also you will have product session across all the product groups, VCF, ANS, Tanzu. So that's an awesome opportunity for everyone to attend the event on site and get a fair good of experience. So if you have not registered, please do register. I'll share the link on the chat. And going to today's super speakers, we have our first speaker is actually Kunal Patel, supported by Satya Shrestha, who will be taking you through the technical demo. So welcome, Kunal, Satya, over to you. Just before you start, Kunal, if anyone has any questions, please ensure you put it in the Q&A chat so that we can answer them. We have a host of panel who are ready to answer all your questions. And at the end of the webinar, we'll have a survey. So that is definitely a take on for you guys. It helps us give us like the exact content what you're looking for. I see someone raising a hand. Instead of raising hands, please do use the Q&A chat or the chat tab so that we can support you there. Over to you, Kunal.
Thank you, Baisakhi. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining us. So today, I'm going to be talking about advanced cyber compliance, and basically it's an advanced service, native service on top of VMware Cloud Foundation. Just like hyperscalers, we have multitude of different services which helps customers in different areas of their infrastructure or platform services. So one of them is data services. Then we have load balancing, all of that. Today we're going to be talking about advanced cyber compliance, which helps customers to improve their security posture management, do disaster avoidance as well as recovery, right? So from an agenda perspective, I'm going to be talking a little bit about the current cyber threat landscape, which includes some of the frontier AI news that you have been hearing about. We'll talk about what the advanced cyber compliance suite of services is. It has two main pillars: continuous compliance, which we'll be talking about that. And then we will talk about cyber recovery, which is an offshoot of a disaster recovery suite of solutions. And then we'll do a quick demo, right? So we'll have two sets of demos, and we'll come to that in a bit. So before we get started, let's talk a little bit about why we are having these suite of solutions, and why we feel that it's extremely critical for customers to adopt some of these capabilities, right? So let's set the context first. Just talking about disasters. Nobody wants to talk about disasters, but let's talk about disasters for a while. So when we talk about, from a point of view, when we talk about disasters, we can bucket them into two main categories. One is your traditional type of disasters, like, power outages, natural disasters, hardware failures, and things like that, right? So that make up typically about 60 to 70% of your outages that happen to you. But a huge amount of outages that have been happening to enterprises recently has been due to a ransomware kind of attack, right? And that amounts to about 36%. This is an old survey, but it's very highly relevant. And this number is growing. The way you recover from these two different set of incidents is totally different, right? So in a traditional disaster, it's very simple, right? Your power outage happened last night at 10 p.m. You take the 9:55 p.m. copy and you basically recover, or basically fail over to your recovery side, and you're off with your workloads running there. So it's fairly simple. It's straightforward. You can orchestrate it. You can actually automate it, and it is a push button kind of a scenario. But when it comes to ransomware, there's a lot of issues over here because you don't know when you got hit, and that typically because of the varying of the dwell time or the incubation time of the malware, right? So you don't know when the threat actors went in. You don't know what's the level or impact of the threats that they have created internally, right? So which VMs are infected, which workloads are impacted or infected. You don't know any of this, right? So the process to recover from a ransomware attack is totally different, and it needs a lot more a lot more steps in the process, right? So taking into consideration that, park that aside, and we will come to that in how a solution addresses that. The other big challenge that customers are facing right now is the cost of downtime, right? So typically, not the customers don't just evaluate a product based on the general consensus or the statistics, is that typically due to a ransomware breach, you're out of pocket by about 5 million because of the ransomware payment or the other things that loss of business and all of that, right? So there's an entire downtime cost. And so a lot of customers typically have SLAs, right? So they have RPOs, RTOs, and that's how they are measuring some of these services. But what we recommend customers is that they need to have a realistic figure in terms of what has been their historical recovery times, right? So the mean time to recover is extremely important. And another statistic, which is another metric which is very important, is mean time to remediate, right? So we'll come to that as well, right? So it's really important to have these metrics as your North Star when you go about building your capabilities. Let's look at some of the attacks that have happened recently. This is just a slide on India, but we have all the APJ numbers as well. Now, these are the top 5 attacks that have happened in India. And what I want to bring your attention to is two main things, right? So the level of damage is monumental. It's huge, right? And it's not just monetary uh, aspects of it, but it's also citizens' data that could actually lead to disruption in citizen services, or even threats to citizens and things like this. So in this case, Aadhaar card is like an identity card database for India. 815 citizens records were exposed. That's huge, right? And that's danger to the society. Now the damage is huge. Everybody knows there's a huge damage, but what I want to bring your attention to, and this is what you need to solve for as you invest in some of these capabilities, is that they typically get in through unpatched software, as you can see over here, right? So the same thing happened in ICMR Aadhaar card incident. They saw a weakness in some of the platforms that they were using, which was unpatched. They were using older versions, and they got in outdated systems, security controls, right? So, there is controls like CIS benchmarks and other benchmarks that you can actually use for different vendors or software vendors that you have. And if you're not adhering to some of these, or if you're not setting up some of these policies and controls, you probably lead to a vulnerable configuration within your system. And typically the threat actors will exploit that, right? So that's that. And when we look at some of the reports from independent reports from third-party vendors like CrowdStrike and Mandiant, right? Three key things stand out over here, right? Number one is that majority of the attacks happen because of exploits, and the exploits is of vulnerabilities, right? Unpatched systems like we saw just now, and of misconfigurations, right? So certain you're probably having Windows machines, Linux machines, and all of them have certain controls and certain features or tool sets within those operating systems which the threat actors typically exploit. And if you don't configure it in the most secure way to improve your posture, they're going to be exploited, right? So 32% of that. 82% of the detections in the malware of the attacks, right, were typically malware free. Means there was no signature. So you could have the best EDR in the world, but it's not going to be able to detect some of these attacks that have happened. 82% of them, right? So there's a huge number. And typically, and you see the last stat, which is 89% year over year rise in attacks by AI enabled adversaries. And this is, if we look at the realistic figure right now, the number of AI enabled attacks is still low compared to what it will be in the future, right? So 89% is the year over year rise, but it's still, below 10% of the overall attacks that happen. But that number is worth looking out for. And you have probably heard of the recent attack on, Hugging Face, and how the model actually escaped the sandbox and attacked some of their servers, and now Hugging Face is demanding $100 million from worth of credits from OpenAI. Anyway, so back to this, right? So when we look at the AI enabled attacks, they are doing four main things right now. They're specializing in four main things. So crawling the internet for exploits, or crawling the system for exploits. You can actually automate this task using some of these models. You go to huggingface.com, you just search vulnerabilities or exploits, and they will have a bunch of open source models. You download that, on your PC, on your laptop, use Olama inference engine, and you can actually go and build some of these exploits on your own. You can chain different vulnerabilities together. So you can automate this task, right? All of these things. The third thing that is being used, AI is being used for, is to modify the signatures of known malware, right? So why reinvent the wheel? They're thinking, let's just modify what's there existing so that the EDRs can't sense it anyway. And the last one, which is on the rise, big rise, is the end-to-end attacks that the AI enabled threat actors are doing, right? So this is still rising, but we foresee that there's going to be so much of AI enabled attacks in the near future, just due to the two-digit growth that we are seeing right now. Some of the famous threat actors like Scattered Spider, Cozy Bear, and if you I urge you to read the CrowdStrike Global Threat Report, and you will see some of these code names. These are CrowdStrike code names. We will just look at Scattered Spider ransomware attack chain, just to set some context as to where we can help from VCF Advanced Services or VCF Cyber Compliance perspective, right? So when you look at the attack chain, typically the first step involves, this is a scattered spider playbook. So basically the first part is reconnaissance, right? So in this, they look at they basically get open source intelligence. So all your social media profiles and everything available on the internet can be searched, right? So typically they will find the weakest person or weakest link within your organization, typically somebody who's working in the IT or somebody who has admin level rights, right? So if you take an example of an attack that happened on one of the casino chains 2 years ago, and this was a major one where they were almost out of pocket by $100 million. And this is what they did, right? So they found somebody from the organization, from that organization, and they searched about this person. Then they impersonated this person, right? They impersonated this person. The voice, they called the IT help desk. Once they called the IT help desk, they disabled, saying that, oh, they've lost their password. Now let's disable the MFA so that they can reset the password. Once that first initial access was done, so step 1 to 4, right? Now they have gained access. Once they have gained the access to the core systems, now they privileged access. So to do the privilege of access, what they did was they went in further and disabled certain security policies within those operating systems, and eventually got hold of 100 plus ESXi servers, and locked down their systems and asked for ransom. Right, this was MGM Grand. Huge attack that happened. So $100 million worth of damage that happened. Now, what we are saying is that 1 to 4, you should assume that this is going to happen, because this is a people problem, right? You can have the best security policies and all of that, but you cannot solve for the weakest link within your organization. But 5 to 7, this is where you can really avoid, because you can harden your systems. And should you fall prey to or victim to any of these kind of attacks, you should be able to recover as quickly as possible, so you don't have to pay the ransom and your business operations don't stop, right? So that's where we want to help you. So I'm just going to quickly touch base on project glasswing as well, because we want to double click on the fact that everybody probably is very familiar with project glasswing. Is basically project initiated by Anthropic, one of the frontier AI model operators. They invited 50 plus partners who are considered critical software vendors across the world to take part in this exercise, where they had this model, Mythos, which they felt was very powerful because it could act as a threat actor, right? And it could uncover a lot of things within systems. And so in this is just the headline statistics. Basically, in the first month itself, they found 10,000 plus vulnerabilities in these 50 software vendors, right? So, and that's a huge number. Now, imagine your own tech stack, right? Or your own software that you're running, just operating systems. You probably are running some outdated operating systems or applications, and all these different critical vulnerabilities are found, right? Typically, when you're doing your patching, right, you would focus on, let's say, vulnerabilities score between 9 to 10 first, if within 48 hours, or within 2 days or 3 days or 4 days, whatever SLAs you have, and then you will patch the low ranking CVSs later on, right? But now you have an entire inflow of critical vulnerabilities, right? So another example, 3 weeks ago, Microsoft had their Patch Tuesday. That was one of the biggest Patch Tuesdays, because they released 622 vulnerabilities with patches. And so imagine the inflow of vulnerabilities now that you need to patch across all your system. Multiply that by the number of systems you have, right? The other key thing that surfaced was open source software. Now, a lot of your software, if you look at the SBOM or the software bill of materials, it has dependencies on open source software, right? So whether it's Python libraries or something on GitHub, it has a lot of dependencies. So 23K was, vulnerability surface on open source software. Now, put all of this together in the context of your organization. Now, if you have an entire inventory list of your first thing, you need to get a view of your entire list of software that you're running, all the different versions, all the different dependencies of those versions, map it with all those different databases for those CVEs. And a lot of times the CVEs are they will have a discovery of the vulnerability, but they don't have a patch yet. So you will need to identify and isolate. So the reason for me to share all of this is to basically highlight the fact that we're on the rise in terms of how you're going to manage some of these vulnerabilities and some of these security posture capabilities for your organization. So the things are changing very fast. We tested the model on our own software, right? So initially, when we tested, it wasn't a big game changer or anything like that. We just fed it the source code and asked it to look for vulnerabilities. It identified a bunch of different vulnerabilities, but that's it, right? Then we went a little bit further, right? So we gave it a little bit more context. We gave it some tooling as well, right? So we gave it a POC environment. We gave it some a live environment where our software was deployed, and then we asked it to basically go and hack the system, right? So act as an adversarial actor, right? So when we did all of this, we found out that the model was able to chain different vulnerabilities together, create a proof of concept, and actually go and infiltrate our software. And so you would see that not just Microsoft or any of these vendors that took part, us, we are going to be releasing a lot more patches as we go along. And so you'll be dealing with this very soon, right? Or already. So our general guidance or approach to customers now, when it comes to compliance and maintaining a very solid security posture, is first and foremost, move to the latest versions of all your software. The second one is maintain stringent configurations like CIS benchmarks, all of that. And to be able to do that, you will need to definitely automate your patch pipeline, right? And have some North Star metrics like mean time to recover, mean time to remediate, or mean time to recover and mean time to remediate. And this should be reported, and this should be followed very strictly, right? When we talk to customers, oftentimes, right, we talk to customers and we ask them what the RPO RTOs is. All of them have a very confident answer: 2 hours, 4 hours, this, that. But when we ask about mean time to recover, right, sometimes they might have an answer for 2 hours or 1 hour or whatever it is, a few minutes or whatever, for the DR scenarios, but they do not, or they have not tested for a ransomware recovery scenario. And fourth, over here, you can see is invest in defender side AI. So have a red team which uses AI to exploit your own systems. But again, something not it's not covered by us. So what we are going to help you with is 1, 2, 3 over here, right? Now, as I mentioned, when we talk to customers, they don't have some of these metrics already as part of their standard operating procedure from a reporting perspective. But also, what we see is that they have very siloed policy management, right? So they could have multiple different applications. Each of them is being managed in a different way. Each of them are being managed or having different security policy controls, right? So you could have a Windows, the Windows team is doing it, or the application team is doing it. using System Center. You could have another team managing all the Linux operating systems, or a different way of doing that. And so it's very siloed. All of this is very siloed, and there is no structure to it. And so what that means is that you don't have a visibility of your entire inventory of software and applications and infrastructure in a single sort of portal. The second one, when it comes to DR, right, and cyber recovery, what we see is that a lot of customers are stitching different tools together, right? So they have a backup tool. Fantastic. We have an immutable backup. We have storage. We have an EDR solution. They say, okay, we have an environment where we can bring up some of these and inspect those VMs, but all of this is disparate tools. Now, what that happens is that orchestration, automation, all of these things are disparate. And so what happens is that now you're introducing more software that you eventually need to patch. And we just saw that there's going to be more and more vulnerabilities discovered, and so you need to patch. So why have more software that you need to patch? Why not build everything natively? And that's our goal. Our objective is to help you build this recovery capability within the platform itself. And of course, if these two things are not there, you're not going to be able to keep up with some of these evolving security requirements. And for a lot of the uh, you know uh, organizations such as financial services or government or defense, this could be a huge problem because they are liable to comply to certain standards, right? So if you're a bank operating in three regions, you need to now be liable to answer to three different standards, APRA, the MAS, let's say, or whatever standards that you need to comply to, and you need to provide proof of that. Now, if you don't provide proof of that, there could be fines as well, right? The fines can stack up to hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And so nobody wants to go through that. So having the best of both worlds in terms of a centralized policy management plus a single native tool to manage the DRPs and be able to prove that is extremely critical for a lot of customers. And that is why we have introduced this solution or suite of services called Advanced Cyber Compliance. Now, advanced cyber compliance has a bunch of different things put together, but it has two main pillars or two main services which help you to build your posture, means help you to avoid disaster, but at the same time recover should you get hit as well. So the first one is continuous compliance, and we will get to the details of that. And the other one is automated ransomware recovery and data recovery, right? This is an actual customer code. So this is a very large customer, financial services customer, which basically was, liable for a lot of because it was regulated, it was liable for audits, right? So, depending on which customer you talk to, they could be liable for audit maybe once a year, or twice a year, or quarterly, or when they do M&A exercise, they need to go and do an audit of the buying organization. And they were doing a lot of these things manually, pulling different reports together, but making it converging it together, and then all of this was manual and error prone. And so when an external auditor comes in, finds a lot of issues, there's a lot of time wastage, right? So we with this tool, they were able to see that they could solve or make all of this manual tasks go away, because you could automate a lot of these compliance tasks, and you would get a centralized report for that, right? So let's say you want to automate a particular standard, CIS standard, across your entire portfolio of your operating systems, Windows, Linux, whatever it is, you could go and do that. So let's dig a little bit deeper into each of these two pillars, right? So first, I'm going to be talking about the continuous compliance piece. You might be familiar with a solution called Salt. So we have the open source Salt stack, and it's used by tens of thousands of customers. We have some customers managing more than 400,000 or few hundred thousand endpoints using Salt, right? What we have done is we have created VCF Salt, Enterprise Salt, which we basically give end-to-end support for, so that customers can manage the operating systems running on it, right? The workloads as well as the infrastructure layer. So all the different appliances within VCF. Right? It does a few things. So the first and foremost, it can help you to automate some of your day zero to day one tasks, day two tasks as well. So it can help you build golden templates for your virtual machines of your workloads that you can deploy at boot time, or when you are actually deploying, it just does from a particular template based on certain configurations that you set. It can also help you to automate the patching and vulnerability patching standards, right? So you have set up a particular process that you want to follow. It can help you to automate all of that. The third thing that it helps you do is to set up certain benchmarks. So you might be following CIS, PCI, whatever those benchmarks are. You don't have to go and write the code for a particular standard that you want to deploy, right? We write this code for you, we publish it for you so that you can just simply uh, take it, with a few clicks, enforce it within your entire portfolio of your workloads, right? So you can set up certain desired states for your workloads. You can enable reporting for that. And of course, should there be any sort of drift, you can auto remediate that as well, right? So let's look at how the architecture looks like, right? So as I was saying, over here on this diagram, you can see there's salt master and salt minions. Now, salt master is your golden record of all your different states of your different workloads that you want to manage. Salt minions are your endpoints, right? So your agents running on your endpoints. There is an event bus in the middle, which is used for fast communication between the salt master and the minions. And you can set up multiple different pairs of salt master and minions. And all of this is managed using a GUI. We call it the returner as a service, and it has a few different components within that. All of that managed and supported by VMware. So you don't have to go and take the open source versions of Salt Master and Salt Minions and go and develop an entire thing on your own and support it on your own. We support it for you. Anything that's running on VCF can be managed using VMware Salt, right? So let's just take a quick example of how it works. So you have your salt master. The salt master had a golden state or that you want to maintain for a particular set of minions, right? So you have these minions. These are, let's say, Windows machines, and you have certain policies for those minions based on those Windows machines based on CIS benchmarks, right? So in this case, if let's say a certain policy is changed, or let's say a window somebody goes and logs into your Windows machine, gets an access, logs into those Windows machine and disables a certain feature, like enables SSH, for example, when it's supposed to be disabled. Immediately there'll be a beacon within that salt minion where it will send an information or relay an information back to the salt master. The reactor will read the information and say this is not the correct state, immediately relay back and change back the setting from enable SSH to disable SSH. And all of this can be done in milliseconds. And Satya is going to show you a live example of how that works in a Windows machine, right? So that's a little bit about how we can automate the entire compliance and vulnerability management using Salt for both your workloads as well as your VCF stack. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about disaster recovery, right? First and foremost, we recommend that customers do very frequent testing. And the more frequent testing, the better it is for multiple different reasons, right? And, typically you're going to be having a lot of changes in your workloads or your infra because of, could be patching, could be growth of data, whatever it is, right? And if you've not tested that, so let's say you did a test today and the next test you do is next year. From now until next year, there's going to be a lot of changes. And if you have not tested in the middle and you get struck by some sort of a disaster, even if it's a normal disaster like an earthquake or some, a power outage or something like that, you don't have a confidence that it's going to, when you actually hit the button recover, you will actually recover, right? So frequent testing is extremely important. So you reduce the errors when actually you need to recover during an incident. And most customers are not doing this. And when we ask them, why are you not doing this? And typically the answer is not enough resources, do not have the entire automation end to end or orchestration end to end to be able to do it in a push button way, don't have a way to do it in a non-disruptive way. People, resources, tool, right? These are the typical challenges that customers have. And we want to solve this for you. We want to make it extremely easy for you to test it and be able to recover should the time come, right? So with that, I'm just going to quickly introduce a suite of recovery solutions called protection and recovery, right? It has your standard disaster recovery orchestrations, which was there in, Site Recovery Manager, which a lot of you might be familiar with. You can do planned migration, standard disaster recovery operations. If you have vSAN, you can also do operational recovery using local snapshots, vSAN local snapshots. You can do by directional protection as well. So you can have site A replicating to site B replicating back to site A, and flip between two different DCs. And the one thing that we have added recently is cyber recovery. Now, if you, some of you might recall, we bought a company called Daydream about 7 years ago, and we had a solution called VMware Cloud. We still have it actually. We a solution called VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery that basically provided on-time, flexible DR solution for customers, which could scale, right? So they don't have to invest in all the hardware at once. You know, they could have two nodes running there, and should there be a disaster, they could scale up within minutes or hours for the number of nodes they require. And this is still there in AWS, VMware Cloud Disaster Recovery. A lot of our regulated customers ask for this solution in on-premises. And so now with VCF 9.1, we have actually delivered cyber recovery as part of the overall protection and recovery suite of solutions within VCF 9.1. The setup remains the same. What we have done is we've consolidated the appliance. So all the replication types would go through a single appliance. All the traffic, data replication, and the DR runbooks all reside over here. So we call it the protection and recovery appliance. You plug it into your two different vCenters, so production side and recovery side. The second thing that you do is you set up these protection groups, and you could do, you could do tag-based VMs where, autonomously, once it identifies a particular tag, it gets included in a particular protection group. So there's less manual intervention. You map the different resources. So let's say now you want to have this particular like a bubble network for just for testing. You could map that. So you just push a button, you able to test, provide a report saying I've tested, it works. My mean time to recover is so and so, right? You could do some of these things. So it's extremely flexible, this tool. And the last one is you set up your recovery plans, right? So in the recovery plans, now we have with the latest solution of cyber recovery, you can set up a cyber recovery plan within the solution. So let's quickly look at the recovery plan orchestration or runbook, right? So again, extremely flexible, and you can drill down quite a bit. So you can have priorities and dependencies, and this is, I mean, a lot of the DR tools would have something similar, but we make it native part of VCF, right? So you could have different priority groups. Within those priority groups of your runbook, you could have dependencies, right? So for example, in priority group one, just first boot up the master database. Once that is done, you do the priority group two. You will have two things, database and BI can come together. In priority group three over here, what you see is that once ecom is up, only when the e-commerce site one is up, then you bring up the ecom 2 site, and then you go to priority 4 and 3. So you can set up some of these different detailed run books for each of your different workloads or application tiers that you might have. And yeah, so you can do a lot of fancy things with this. I'm going to focus a little bit more on the cyber recovery and how it works, right? So typically, when we talk about cyber recovery, the first problem is that you don't know when you got hit, right? It could be in the last 1 hour. It could be 1 week ago when the threat actors actually entered your systems, or it could be 3 months or 6 months, right? So either ways, we expect that customers should hold at least 3 to 6 months of snapshots, right? And these snapshots should be immutable. That means no one can go and make any changes or delete those, right? And once you have that, that's the baseline. Once you have that, a lot of customers do have that. Once you have that, the fun begins, right? So let's say you get hit by ransomware today morning. You're logging into your system, your Windows machine can't log in as a crypto locker. The first thing that you need to do is you will disconnect your production site from everything. So it's completely gone. Your forensics team is working on identifying the root cause. Maybe you have an incident response team that is working on that as well. Now you need to bring back your business operations as quickly as possible, right? So the first challenge that you will have is, where should I start my recovery process from? Which VM or which point in time do I need to go back to? So in our tool, what we are doing is we are help guiding the customers by giving them two main metrics. One is change rate of data, how much data was added or changed, and the other one is entropy rate. Entropy rate is the randomness of data. It basically tells you the compressibility of that machine, right? That data sitting on that machine. And if it's not compressible, means there has been an encryption event. So you probably won't start from that point. You'll start from a point slightly before that. Once you have a point that you want to start from, right? So this is your first challenge. Okay. Once you have selected the ideal snapshots, once you have selected those ideal snapshots, the inspection really begins over here. And to do that inspection, that level of inspection, you need an isolated clean room. Now, the isolated clean room is a logical construct where we block off all internal, external, and we individually isolate each VM. The next thing we do is we install an EDR scanner, and it's better to install a fresh scanner. So you might have, let's say, I don't know, Microsoft Defender running there. We will purge that and we will install Carbon Black. Now, if you have CrowdStrike for some reason and you're using CrowdStrike, it's one of the most popular ones, so you potentially are using that. If you're using CrowdStrike, we have a direct integration with CrowdStrike, so it's part of this automation. You bring your own licenses and you can actually use your CrowdStrike EDR. Now, the reason that there's two ways to think about it. We prefer fresh installation of the scanner because whatever it was, your previous EDR didn't catch it, right? And so you want a fresh lens on your VM for the analysis. But let's say you say, I have this baseline behavior analysis data, telemetry data that I want to compare against, right? So your CrowdStrike instance would have that. You could do that, right? So both ways have its own pros and cons. So you install the EDR scanner, and the EDR scanner will do three things, right? It will basically look for file signatures, and you saw 82% has no signatures. So this most likely will come out empty. Then it will look for vulnerabilities, and you probably have a huge number of vulnerabilities over here. Maybe it's low scoring vulnerabilities or whatever. And the third thing it will do is it will initiate the behavior analysis in your EDR, right? So usually it's typically is cloud-based. It'll send some telemetry data there, and you can start to analyze your VM, which is running, right? So it's very important the VM is running and it's doing the behavior analysis. Typically, we advise 8 hours of running, but you don't have to do 8 hours for every single VM, right? So depending on your judgment, you would take that judgment call. And this again, we will pause here and let the user define what they want to do next, right? So over here, okay, I want to let this VM or this set of VM to continuously be monitored for anomalous behavior for maybe 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever. Once that is done, uh, if I'm not happy with the results, it's still showing some sort of risky behavior or malicious behavior, I will go back to the process and I'll select a different restore point, and I'll go through the entire process again. If I'm happy, I could then fail back the changes. So I'll stage it, fail back the changes to the production side. But typically, when ransomware type of a scenario happens, your production site will be down for a few days or sometimes even weeks, right? So the average documented time is about 2 weeks. And you want to be able to run some of your most critical workloads immediately, right? So you could then use or double up the clean room if you have additional resources there. And once you have set up your network configurations and all that, you could run your workloads from that, right? So the clean room can be doubled up as somewhere where you can, as a DR option where you can run your workloads as well. So it depends on how you set it up. Uh, this solution is being used by a lot of the savvy customers to actually improve their RPOs as well, right? So typically, we recommend, it could be 3 to 6 months, you go back, you lose some data, but you could improve your RPO tremendously if you do a lot of regular testing, right? So for example, if I was to say, okay, every Friday, I'm going to push these sets of VMs into the clean room, do the analysis, and I come back on Monday and I will have all these different flags, any sort of anomaly, any sort of vulnerabilities, all of that will be flagged out. I go fix that, and that is my latest known good point, right? So should I get hit by ransomware attack on Tuesday, Now I have a very solid recovery point that I can start off from on Monday, right? I don't have to go all the way back because I know for a fact that my Monday was good because I did the work over here, right? So if you have these kind of tools or capabilities, you can do a lot of non-disruptive testing and reduce your some of your SLAs as well, and you can get to some of your metrics like MTTR and things like that. Now, how does this look like on premises using VCF? So some key components. So on your production site, very important is that it doesn't need to be VCF on your production site, right? So it could be whatever site you're running, including edge sites as well. But on your DR site, it needs to be a VCF 9.1 setup. You need to have a vSAN storage cluster using vSAN ESA. So the NV, ME drives over there, but you can use cheaper drives, QLC drives and all of that. And then you will set up a workload cluster where you will do the VPC for the inspection of the VMs, right? And we're using some of the vDefend concepts over here for the segmentation of traffic. And then you would have a management domain. But again, it's flexible. Some customers say, okay, I want a minimum viable bank. And for my minimum viable bank, I can have a consolidated architecture. So I don't need a separate management domain consolidated. But what we do advise customers is that if you are creating a site for the scenario of ransomware attack, like a tertiary site over here, have a separate access altogether, right? So, most likely, if you are hit by ransomware, your production site is down, everything is compromised, all your identities, everything is compromised, right? So you want to have a separate AD, everything separate for this particular site over here, right? So let's just bring back everything together. If we look at the attack journey, just go back to the attack journey that we saw with Scattered Spider, right? So let's assume, step 1 to 4, the threat actors are going to infiltrate your parameter. They're going to go in. The next thing that they will do is exploit the vulnerabilities and configurations. Now we can help you from VCF. VCF natively has many features, which things like ESXi live patching, all of those things are there, which helps you to patch your platform. Uh, at the same time, for your workloads and some benchmarks that you want to configure, Salt can come in, or VCF Salt can come in and help you with that, right? So automate the entire patch pipeline, set up certain desired state configurations across your entire estate, and configure and set up drift remediation, right? So automated drift remediation. Now, should all of this fail, right? And this is, if you set this up properly, is less likely that it will fail. But should all of this fail, then some of your workloads will be compromised. But again, our vDefend suite of solutions will help to solve for some of the lateral security, and is a really really good solution to help you to prevent any lateral movement of some of these threat actors and even isolate this. And this can be then sent, this information can also be sent back to Salt, where it can go and do patching of those exploited workloads on the fly. And should everything fail, right? We have the cyber recovery solution to respond to a cyber attack so that you can get back your business operations as quickly as possible without paying the ransom. And this is how we are trying to deliver, a zero trust private cloud, which has end-to-end capabilities to help you from, disaster avoidance all the way to disaster recovery, right? Everything in the middle. Now, customers might have a point of many different point solutions, like we mentioned, right? More solutions, more patching for you, more work for you. We want to avoid that, right? So anything that's running on VMware Cloud Foundation, um, we want to create native services so that you can sort of, we're not saying replace every single solution out there. Some of them work in a complementary way, but what we are saying is reduce your risk posture by using less software so that you have less software to manage. Your cost goes down and you improve your security posture overall, right? So this is an introduction of what advanced cyber compliance is. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a little bit of time to go through two of these solutions that we just talked about. So my colleague Satya is going to go through continuous compliance. What he is going to show you is a Windows machine which had a particular policy setup. and somebody went and changed the policy and how it, remediated. And the other one is a ransomware recovery situation where you need to recover from a ransomware attack. Okay, so I'm going to stop share. I'm not going to steal any more thunder from Satya. Satya, brother, you ready?
Yes, thank you,
Yeah.
Kunal.
Over to you,
That's
Satya. Yeah.
Thank you, brother. Yep, that's fantastic content earlier. So, like Kunal said, I'm gonna go through two use cases, two demos here. One for continuous compliance. We'll start with that, and then after that, we'll go through the cyber recovery. The few of the things that Kunal touched on, we'll see that live, and I'll show you how it is done with our um, cyber recovery product. So first off, I'm gonna start with the continuous compliance piece. All right. Can anybody tell me if you can see my screen, my Chrome browser?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Thank
can.
you.
Okay, cool.
If
So
you
I'm
can
logged
blow
in.
up a little, Satya, like zoom it,
I'll
it
zoom
will.
it up,
Yeah,
zoom up a little bit. Is it better?
yeah, this is better.
Okay, good. So I'm logged into my vCenter here, and I have a Windows machine that, let's say an attacker is trying to infiltrate and then do a few things in there, right? So let me actually launch the web console for this Windows machine. It is called APZ Win01. So I'm launching the web console for that particular virtual machine. So there are certain things that in this machine that, let's say, in our company, we need to follow as part of the CIS benchmark policies, right? Um, CIS benchmark is, as many of you would know, that it is a set of guidelines that a company should follow and make sure that you follow through to make your environment secure, right? Your endpoints like Windows or Linux, etc. So we do have to follow. I'm just trying to log in here. So in this machine, what I'm trying to do is there is a registry item here, as you can see. This Windows machine has Haskell local machine, system control set services, landman, workstation, and parameter. And there is one parameter called enable plain text password. So basically what it means is if you enable that, if that configuration item is enabled, all the things, the passwords that's been shared between this machine and other machines or services, etc., will be uh, transferred in a plain text, which is an issue, right? So attacker can, get that password and then they can start infiltrating other environments. So what we have done is for this setting, we have actually in VMware Salt, we have created a configuration item where as soon as this machines, this enable plain text password item is changed, that registry item is changed, the salt will automatically detect the drift. We call it configuration drift, right? It will detect the drift and it will rectify it straight away, right? For our case, we have actually delayed because Salt can do it in milliseconds. So just to see, how it is doing things, we have delayed it for 10 seconds. And then you will see, the Salt detects the configuration drift that somebody has gone there maliciously and changed this value. Salt will automatically remediate. It's also called automatic remediation, right? Many people call it auto healing. So Salt will go ahead and do that, right? Now, in Salt's world, you may have seen earlier in Kunal's that PowerPoint presentation, we talked about Salt Master, Salt Minion, reactors, beacons, different terms there, right? So in this case right now, I'm actually logged into this Windows virtual machine. It is actually called Minion. It communicates constantly with the Salt Master through Reactor as a service. It's called RAS server, right? And then they constantly communicate, the values, etc. And then they will report back to the master about the configuration items that is being monitored, right? Or that is part of the compliance posture. Now, in my example right now, as you can see, this enable plain text password is set to 0, which is disabled, right? If I go ahead and say, hey, somebody went there ahead programmatically or through UI and change this value to 1, that means they want to steal a password, right? They're trying to enable your password in a plain text. Now, right now you can see it's 1, right? Let me quickly pivot to my Salt dashboard, and then I'll quickly show you the activity panel here. This is my Salt UI. It's called RAS UI, right? And you can see certain activities happening here. There are lots of things happening here. We are monitoring multiple minions. Minions is communicating with this RAS server, and then Salt, if it detects any configuration drift, it will automatically remediate, right? This item wasn't there just an instance ago. Now, what you can see is something has happened here, and it has executed a job, right, through API, and it has actually done some state apply. Let's have a quick look on what that actually is. So in here, you can see, hey, it has found something happening here. And the minion that it is speaking with is APZ-Win01, which is what we were seeing earlier, right? APZ-101, that minion. Something happened in that minion. Salt detected it. And then if I just expand it here, it has timestamp value, right? It has some arguments that it actually tracks. And if I go through some of these items in here, you can see a pillar, and it actually detected the drift. There's a drift data. It says, hey, look, current value is 1. Our golden state or desired state is 0. Somebody is tinkering with this registry item, and then they are trying to do something in here, right? And then you can even see the value, what value has been changed. So Salt quickly detected it within a few seconds, right? It could be done, like I said, done in milliseconds, but for our example, we have just configured it, do it every 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Now, it detected it, and what it did is it actually went ahead and it remediated automatically, right? So Salt goes ahead and then it remediates it, and it's straight away it changes the value to 0. That's what you can see here in this Salt UI. Now let's go back to that Windows machine and let's see what happened here, right? So if I just refresh it just by going to a different node here, you can see the parameter is changed to 0 already without anybody touching, without anybody doing anything, right? Without even any auditors or security people looking at it. Somebody tried to change it, Salt detected it, and it automatically remediated it, right? So that's the power of continuous compliance. And the talk track that Kunal was talking about earlier, the AI could be doing these things, chaining the vulnerabilities, exploiting the existing vulnerabilities, etc. Now, in this AI frontier age where AI could do this kind of attacks, etc., if you have a continuous compliance like Salt, you are like kind of protected, right? I wouldn't say fully protected, but depending on how you have architected your environment, depending on how your compliance policies are in place, Salt can do this automatically for you. So in many cases, this saves a lot of time for security people, for infrastructure guys, etc. Right? So this is the part of continuous compliance. In Salt, I'll just quickly touch on a few of the components here. Our team actually can do a dedicated workshop just on Salt and spend hours and hours and hours just on this, right? If you want to see, like a use case by use case kind of demo or some kind of workshop, please engage us through your account director or your team, VMware team, and we'll be happy to help you there. But before I conclude this demo, I'll just quickly show you a few things here. So here's something called targets. Targets are the things like Windows machine, your endpoints, right? Could be network machines, it could be Linux machines, etc. The target earlier I was talking about is actually registered as Windows machine, and you could see we call it minions, right? So APJ Win01 is one of the target we have, and that's where we just saw earlier how we could easily remediate issues if there is anything happening in that minion. There are various things in here, job schedules, etc., etc. So I'm not going to go too much into it. A few things I want to mention here is we also help with compliance, things like CIS benchmarks, different ISO standards. Even you have a custom benchmarks that could also be created here. And then, like I said, the configuration items, etc. You want to make sure that your company has to follow. That could be pushed through here, right? The other section is vulnerability, things like patching, etc. That could also be done through Salt. Again, today we're not going to touch that one, but yeah, Salt can do both compliance, posture management with various policies, as well as your patch management, right, through the vulnerability. Now that's the first part of the demo around continuous compliance. I want to pivot quickly to the other part of the demo, which is cyber recovery. Now, in this example, I do have a virtual machine which is actually infected, right? So this is my Windows virtual machine. It has been infected. Let's have a quick look. I'm trying to log into this machine. Let's see what happens here. I'm gonna put my username and password here. And if I go to this file explorer, and if I try to open, one of his drive, which is X drive at the moment, you can see it's locked. It is BitLocker encrypted. If I try to open it, it says, "Hey, look, I don't have you don't have password. Enter the password." Pretty much, this is locked. It could be a ransomware if attack or something like that, right? Now, this machine is compromised. How do we get out of this situation, right? This is where the cyber recovery come into play, right? Now I'm going to our protection and recovery console. I saw one of the attendee earlier said, "Hey, it looks like SRM." One of the comment there, I was looking at it earlier. Yes, it is actually and a combined appliance that can do your disaster recovery, which is our traditional disaster recovery with SRM. It has been optimized, etc. And on the same appliance, we also have a capability for ransomware recovery. Many people also call it cyber recovery, right? It is also there. Now, in this demo, we'll talk mainly around ransomware recovery, not this SRM, not this the usual disaster recovery. If I click on the ransomware recovery here, you can see your primary site. It doesn't have anything installed here. It doesn't have clean room. Ransomware recovery is not enabled there. But if I go to the secondary, your vCenter, this is where the ransomware recovery is enabled, right? You can see here, it has an IDR also being used, which is carbon black. Kunal touched on it a little earlier. With our ransomware recovery protection, carbon black is included. You don't have to license it separately. It comes together with our product. But if you have another choice of your EDRs, you can use things like CrowdStrike as well, right? That's also fully supported. In here, you can see the connector is enabled. This is the vCenter that is there. There is a concept of VPC, virtual private cloud. So this is also enabled here for the isolation purposes. And then the sensor for IDR is carbon black here. You can see the versions, etc. Right? Let's quickly go to the recovery plan here. In this recovery plan, let's go to the demo RP. Recovery plan is basically the orchestration that you want to go through, right? When you are going to recover your environment to your, our ransomware recovery or your cyber recovery data center, you will have to go to that recovery plan. And in this case, I'm going to go to the ransomware recovery. You can see there are 2 virtual machines as part of this, right? I'm going to start ransomware recovery here. So I'll click the ransomware recovery. It is saying, hey, I have 2 virtual machines involved here. Yeah, that's okay with me. I'm going to say start recovery, ransomware recovery. Now, in this case, I'm going to select these Windows virtual machines, which we saw earlier in my, the virtual machine that has some issues, right? So TOI WK19_VM, that's the virtual machine that we're going to use. And I'm going to say validate. Let's go and have a look what's going on. I'm going to go to the day. So this is what Kunal was talking about earlier. When we are going to recover your virtual machine, you would be looking at what are the change rates? What is our typical change rate? Looks like, what is our entropy look like, right? Change rate is basically how much data has been changed since the last snapshot. And also entropy is, like Kunal was saying, is this, does it have a lot of random data? A lot of random data means it's encrypted. That means there is some issues in there, right? So you would select the right snapshot. Many times you would also liaise with your security team, get their guidance around, hey, what is the right time? What do you think should I like? What kind of what day do you think this ransomware thing happened, right? And then maybe get their guidance to recover from there. Or you can also look at change rate and entropy, and then also decide on your own. So let's say I'm going to select one of the snapshot there, and then I want to recover this virtual machine at that point, right? So you can see there the date and time, the timestamp. Now I'm going to say start VM in isolated clean room. Now this is the clean room Kunal was talking about earlier in his architecture diagram. Clean room is essentially an area where you would isolate your environment so it doesn't infect other environment, your production environment or your other environment, right? It's isolated, and then you try to see that virtual machine in that isolated environment and see if there is anything that you can that you can see as an anomaly, right? Or any sort of viruses or ransomware in there. Now, I'm gonna go ahead there. It is now placed in a clean room. I'm gonna click on that open clean room area there. Let's quickly refresh it, and then you will see those virtual machines that we saw in recovery plan will pop up here. Because we only selected the Windows virtual machine, you can see that Windows virtual machine coming up there. It is currently in start validation process, right? Now here, let's refresh one more time. Now what you can see here is it has actually started doing the vulnerability analysis, and also it has completed the malware signature scan, and also the behavior analysis is also happening there, right? So in the isolated clean environment, that virtual machine will go through these various stages and make sure that that virtual machine doesn't have any issue. I'm going to the vulnerabilities that is in there, right? So it will also list all the vulnerabilities that it has detected in that virtual machine. Some could be really high, some could be low risk vulnerabilities. So depending on, again, with your guidance of your security team, you could actually go ahead and remediate those vulnerabilities in that virtual machines as it is in that clean room environment, right? All right, I'm gonna select that CVE, and then let's say I wanna quickly see how it looks actually in Carbon Black's interface itself, right? Right now we are just looking at the cyber recovery interface, but you can actually open it in Carbon Black. One thing I forgot to mention is when you are bringing this virtual machine in your recovery environment, this clean room environment, in our case, if any other EDR is not used, Carbon Black is the default EDR, and it will automatically get installed in your virtual machine, right? You don't have to do anything. It's part of the whole orchestrated workflow. It will automatically install this Carbon Black EDR. It injects it there, and then it does the behavior analysis, signature analysis, etc. Right? So let's open this in Carbon Black. Now I'm in the Carbon Black console here, and you can see also things that Carbon Black shows you, right? Like I said, if there are things that you want to do in here, and then fix the machine, that you can do that in Carbon Black. The other actions you could do is network isolations level. So again, this is part of the protocol already. You don't have to do anything. You just go and say, hey, I want to change the network's isolation level, right? Right now it's in quarantine and analysis phase. Let's say I want to connect it to some of the internal server where you can fetch some patches or something like that, right? You could change the network just by button click here. Now, in my case, I'm going to say, I want to choose the internal environment and I want to do something, right? Or if you want even like temporarily enable some external outbound access, you can do that too. Now, in this case, we're just going to go internal, and then I'll say change network isolation. Okay, so once the things are okay, what we could also see is that you can start, let's say, I'm okay with whatever is done here. The machine is fine. Then you could actually badge it, right? You can see here, this one is the badge that's verified at the moment, right? You can set the badge, etc. Now, also, let's say you checked the thing and then it came out as a dirty snapshot, or not a good virtual machine. It is still infected. You could go back and try different snapshot, right? And you can select the right time, for example, and then you can just go ahead with the same process again. So this is the beauty of it. You don't have to do things manually. You can just go and try to figure out the right time, right snapshot, and then just recover from there, right? So it will give you that flexibility. Now, in this case, I'm not going to do anything here. I'm just going to cancel out of here. For now, let's say this machine is fine. Everything looks good, and I want to complete the validation. So when I do that, I can, like I said earlier, you can badge it as verified, or if you want to say something else, you can also tag it accordingly, right? Now, in my case, I'm going to complete the validation. I'll power off this virtual machine and I'll complete the validation, right? Right now, it's going to the validation stage. What you can see here is the Carbon Black sensor that we installed earlier when we brought up this virtual machine is now getting on installed, right? The sensor is getting on installed. That's the part of the whole workflow as well. So we install it, we do whatever we need to do, check, clean the virtual machine, etc. And once that is done, we remove that. So it will go back to your pristine, like earlier, how the virtual machine was originally, right? So it doesn't leave back that carbon black there. I'm going to go to the isolated clean room. And you can see here, we have done the validation. It is validated. The virtual machine is now coming as validated here, right? Now, at this stage, I'm going to stage this virtual machine, and I want to actually bring it back online, right? I stage it. Let's refresh it. You can see here, it has been staged. Nothing is now in clean room. That virtual machine has left the clean room. I'm going to go back to all virtual machines. You can see here now, this one is tagged as staged because we have staged it, right? I'm going to select it. And now is the time. Now I'm happy, everything is fine. Now I'm going to recover it, right? The recover workflow. I'm going to go ahead and say recover. Okay, so similar sort of thing. Red Hat Linux, we didn't do anything there. We didn't do, sensor, etc. But let's say I'm okay to recover that as well. So I'm recovering that too. Right. So going back to the summary, this machine is now recovered, right? If I go back to my vCenter here, you can see that machine is now in the primary DC. It has been recovered there as a part of the recovery plan. I'm gonna go ahead and then open the remote console of that machine one more time. Send control delete, login in there. And same thing, I'm gonna go to the file explorer and see what's going on there. And as you can see now, you don't see that BitLocker icon anymore, right? Now I can access the drive. That means, we have actually recovered ourselves using a clean snapshot. And then we have recovered it from the ransomware situation. And that actually concludes my demo for today. So from here, Baisaki, do you want to take over from here?
I think we're good. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to type it in the Q&A tab. And I would ask Kunal and the panel, Kunal and Satya, to pick up the questions and answer it live.
Yes, absolutely. One thing I forgot to mention is for both things that I've showed here, right? If you want a comprehensive, little bit more deep dive demos on either Salt or the cyber recovery part, please engage your account team or your solutions architect or whoever is your VMware contact, and our team can come and help you with any of your use cases.
Yeah.
So Kunal, are there any questions you want to answer
I
live?
think one key thing that also a lot of people have asked is around what's the kind of investment required in terms of hardware or licenses and all of those things.
Yes.
Let's have a detailed talk, scenario by scenario. So reach out to your account reps and we can set up some call to actually go through what you have set up, what your plans are, whether it's DR plans, what your compliance liabilities are, all of those things, and then we can talk about what kind of investments you need, right? So it will be a slightly detailed conversation.
Yes. It could be anywhere from 2 hosts to many, many, many hosts, right? So it's variable depending on the architecture. Yes.
We have 3 questions in the Q&A. What is the default replication mechanism and how do you restrict network isolation?
It's being answered by Alec, so I'll let him answer that.
Okay. The second
Okay,
is, what
cool.
is the time strap of the snapshot? Where is the snapshot is stored?
So this snapshot will be stored in the vSAN vault in your DR site, where you will deploy VCF 9.1, and we will create a vSAN vault where it will have snapshots. We can store up to 200 snapshots per VM, and it will have the immutability feature enabled as well. And that's one of the main things why we're using ESA.
Yes. So that vSAN vault that Kunal is talking about is also sometimes called Cyber Vault, right? And the vSAN ESS capability, with the vSAN ESS capabilities, you can store up to 200 snapshot. That means you can go even up to multiple months, so even sometimes even 6, 7 months before, right? Many people don't want to go, that far, but you can even, if you have a requirement where you want to store your snapshots for years or multiple months, that can be done as well.
Yeah. There's one more question on the replication methodology, right? So comparing against, let's say, Zerto, which is journal based for continuous data protection. we can use a few things over here. So vSAN replication, we can do enhanced vSphere application. And if you have storage arrays, pairs of storage arrays, we can do array-based replication as well. So all the previous concepts of SRM still holds over here. It just depends on how you want to set up your DR plans, and we can help you walk through that as well. Yeah. Is there a demo inspecting infected recovery point in the clean room? So, unfortunately, we can't download ransomware in our systems, but we have emulated a ransomware attack, and that's what we are doing. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Satya, we should have a hands-on lab soon for Salt as well as Cyber, right? Or we already have it?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. I think there are some already, but we will have updated ones as well. And
Yeah.
to earlier answer, right? We have done actually in lab. We have infected a virtual machine with an open source, some kind of virus, and then we have recovered it. If you want to see those sort of demo, we can definitely do that customized demo to you as well. And Bhaskar-san, I think he has done it. So the person who asked, I think he's also from Japan. Probably you can reach out to Bhaskar-san, and we can schedule some separate time for that. We can definitely do that.
There's one more question on Windows security settings like the registries and all. Yes, it can be modified, can be managed as well. So there'll be multiple different state modules that you can write out of the box, which can be done. So not a problem at all. Okay.
100%. It's 100% customizable. You can write state file for anything, right? It's very,
So
very flexible.
clean room, there's a question on clean room. Can it be hosted in the cloud? Look, we have a solution which is as a service, managed service in AWS. So that can be done. Eventually, if let's say you're using AWS or some other cloud solution, you're deploying VCF 9.1 onwards there, and they do have vSAN ESA nodes there. You could potentially deploy it there, but we haven't tested. But the solution that we just showed you was the on-prem one. It's typically meant for private cloud customers who are regulated, so they don't want anything to do with the cloud, right? Except for one or two connections that you do. But we do have a cloud solution, which is a separate solution. And that solution, we have hundreds of customers using it for the last 4 or 5 years, right? Do you have end-to-end video for install, config, and test? Yeah, we do have that. I think we can share that. So Faisal, you can write to us. We will share that.
There's a last question. Please confirm how to handle Dell VxRail at DR. And we are running on 8.x. How can we use 9.x?
Dell VxRail question. You want to take it, Satya, or we can take it offline, this one?
Probably Alex is the better person for VxRail conversation. If if Alex can answer that one, man.
Sorry, what was the question? Yeah, I can.
The question was around Dell VxRail.
Yeah.
Sanjay has Dell VxRail running on 8x. How can we use 9x?
Yeah. So okay. So VxRails. Yeah, it's depending on what. If you're running VxRail with VCF5 today, you can just move that to 9. That's fine. The only time VxRail is not supported today to move to 9 is running VxRail plus vSphere and then SX standalone, which is coming in 9.1.2. So Dell have committed to supporting that within 60 days of the 9.1.2 release, and that's when you can upgrade to 9.1 on that environment. Unfortunately, that's the only limitation today.
Thanks, Alex.
Uh,
Okay, I think we are good. Boysak, if there are any leftover questions, probably we can compile all of them
I think that
and answer them.
VMware Salt, or how is VMware Salt different? I think Bhaskar is addressing, but it's totally two different things, right? So Salt is enforcing policies. VDefend is actually monitoring the lateral traffic and enforcing certain security protocols against your east-west traffic, right? So two different tools. Yeah. There's some thing around white paper and all. Please share with us your details, and will send it to you.
Yes.
Cool. Sorry, Satya, you were saying something.
Oh, I was about to say, yeah. So when we talk about advanced cyber compliance, right? It covers both SALT as well as cyber recovery and also
Yeah.
SRM. So it's a whole advanced cyber compliance package that is licensed together, right? So if you get SCC license, you get both SALT as well as cyber recovery as well as SRM, right? So all of that is
Yeah.
bundled together. There is also some other things like CZL container. We partnered together with Ubuntu. That is also part of it. A very highly secure container as well as Linux images as part of VCF, right? That also comes through ACC. There's something called confidential computing, which we didn't talk about today. That is also part of it, right? For highly secure environment where they want to even encrypt the processing within CPU or even the running RAM, right? That's when we will do the confidential computing. That is also part of ACC. There are many other things, right?
Yeah. I think we're all good.
Okay,
Basaki.
cool.
I think one question, can vSphere 8 standard perpetual license free upgrade to VCF 9 because still have SNS?
I think that one you check best with your account rep. It's licensing question for the account rep.
Okay, I think Alec is just answering the last question. So if
Yeah.
everyone is done, he's answered. I think we are good. Just to remind everybody, next Wednesday we have another session on the series, same time. Anything on certifications, you will have the section on the registration page on what you need to do on certification. The prerequisites is there in the hyperlink. And we look forward to see you all in the next week's sessions. Thank you so much. Speakers and panel can drop off. And just remind everybody to take the survey.
Thank you
Thank you,
all.
everybody. Really appreciate the time. Thank you very much.
Bye. See you guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.